Hey, I'm Laura. Welcome to the My Inner Struggle podcast, where I talk about everything personal growth, lifestyle, and business. How are you? I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I'm really excited about this episode because it's kind of things that I've been going through right now in my life. And I think it's a good refresher for all of us and really important. So I'm really, really excited. So, what's next? Oprah actually said you cannot receive anything if your hands are full, right? You're walking around, you've got a bunch of shit in your arms. How are you going to take anything else on? We have to create space. And we've talked about that in the podcast before, creating space to get, to make room for the things that we want to receive, right? And they'll say, what is that famous saying? When one door closes, another one opens. Kind of the same concept. So, what's next? I wanted to start off by saying and sharing something with what's my next right now is if you're a woman with dreams, who isn't, right? If you are a woman that needs to give herself a little bit more love. I was never taught self-love. I was never taught how to love myself and have self-worth. I had to cultivate that on my own. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. But if you feel like you've always been made for more and you just don't know what it is, or you don't know where to start, or you're just feeling a little bit lost, I've created this community called the Self-Love Club. And if you click the link below, it should be here under the podcast to join the waitlist for the Self-Love Club. It's a virtual group that I've created, but to dig a little bit deeper. We're talking community, thinking about this space dedicated to women to, in a safe environment to help each other grow. Think weekly meditation, weekly live coaching calls with me, group discussion, collaboration, and a lot more in a safe environment where you feel accepted by others, a positive, safe space. And that was really important. I never had that. So that's really important in my mission of what I bring to you. So definitely sign up for the waitlist below. That'll be launching in just a few weeks. Today's episode is all about what to do if the people in your life don't support your mission. So it's kind of funny because I've talked about it before, and those that are closest to me in my circle don't necessarily support the mission that I'm on. They don't understand it, and that is part of the issue. Someone that was super close to me, was talking to me about some things, and she thought I owned a marketing company, and it kind of felt bad in a way because I was like, wow. So that means that in every conversation that we've had, you're really not following along. But that's okay. It doesn't really matter. And the people in your circle may not support your dream now, but they'll believe it once you've achieved it. And Rachel Hollis said that, and I was listening to a podcast not that long ago. When you achieve that success, they'll be standing there behind you, congratulating you and telling you that they knew you could do it all along and things like that. And I'm not talking about like the surface support where someone says, I can't think of an example right now, but they're not supporting you. They're not liking your posts or asking questions or anything like that. And again, if I had a partner, maybe it would feel differently, but I'm not so sure. But basically where I was going with that is that it has more to do with them than it does you. Anytime that you're reaching change in your life, it forces them to look in the mirror too. And that's uncomfortable. And they didn't really sign up for that. So that is part of the issue. So as Rachel Hollis said, they won't get it until they see the results. And that is okay. I've always had this entrepreneurial drive. When I was young, I wanted to be a writer. And I talk all about that in my book. And I know I keep talking about my book. I am on draft 3. It is 175 pages right now, and I'm really proud of it. And my beta readers asked for more, so I am giving more detail, more information, just more. And I think you're going to love it, quite honestly. It's been quite the experience writing this book. So anyway, so I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. When I was young, I wanted to be a writer. And my dream, I actually remember my cousin and I had dreamt up these sort of visions that we had for us and our siblings when we were older and what that would look like. And I lived alone in the city and I wrote books. And well, I'm kind of far from that scenario. The whole idea behind it makes sense. I was always very independent. But I was married for 17 years. I had 3 kids and I live in the country. So it's not quite the same. When my children were little, I had started a little like baking business to make extra money. And it was good. I had a lot of orders coming in. It was like regular business. But with 2 little kids at home and I was trying to navigate building the business, I didn't really have the know-how or the tools that I do now to build something, whether it be the marketing experience or just business sense in general. But I found myself growing resentful of it because I was with the kids all day trying to get it done and then up all night also trying to get it done, up until 3 o'clock in the morning, baking and decorating cupcakes. And I grew tired of that. And now I realize after the fact, like, if I knew then what I know now, that definitely wasn't the space for me. But I really wanted to turn it into something. Had I been able to turn a corner and actually make it a thriving business, my story could have been different, could have gone way different. I wanted to open a bakery. And at the time, I was talking to my partner about it and he didn't have the same vision. He basically told me, you'd just be creating a full-time job for yourself. Why would you want to do that? So I just kept doing what I was doing and I never really made it to the next step. That was a little discouraging to me. Who cares if it was a new full-time job for me? I was doing something that I loved to do, but I didn't really have that support. So eventually I stopped and I tried my hands at multi-level marketing with a few different companies. And even then, I never really felt like it was mine. That definitely was not my jam. I am definitely, I love people. People are my passion. So talking with people and telling them about certain things was fun, but having 2 small children at home, it was hard to give up my weekends and my evenings with my family because that's your family time. So eventually that stopped too. And I shrunk a little bit. I hid my ambition. I hid my dreams. I kind of just started turning inward, I guess I would say, and not really feeling fulfilled. I didn't speak my dreams out loud. I didn't use my voice. And I couldn't really put into words the more that I was looking for. And I didn't really know what I was missing at the time. So I continued going through the motions of life. I eventually went back to school full-time. I went back to work full-time and started a few different directions as far as career or schooling goes. And I felt really good about it. And then in 2015, I got pregnant with my youngest daughter. So I kept going to school. I was working full time. But, outside circumstances sometimes influence all those things. So I want to talk a little bit about how I got here exactly. My journey started with a blog post, actually. Shortly after my mother died suddenly in 2016, my youngest was 4 months old, and I found myself at this breaking point. I knew that something had to change, and I really go into detail and specifics about it in my book. So I'm not going to talk about it here, but it was a culmination of a bunch of bullshit in my life that I just couldn't, I had to do something. So the company that I was working for, that I had had a career with for a long time, was being acquired, and I had just had my daughter, my daughter Evelyn, and my mom died. So I was like, what's next? There's got to be something better out there. And I talked about this a little bit in last week's episode. So if you want to go listen, I started watching podcasts. I started reading the books. One of the first books that I read, and I recommend it to everyone the first time, is reading Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. And that really spoke to me because the way she talks about motherhood and the changes that you go through within that just really resonated with me really, really well. And I think I've read that book probably 5 or 6 times since then, when I need to dive back into it and feel like myself again. And I encourage you to do the same. So again, flip back to the last episode. I talk about that a little bit. My mission was like, how can I be a better mom, a better wife, a better person, a better friend, a better employee, whatever it was happening. And when I started this journey, my partner at the time was supportive, but never really understood my vision either. He didn't really understand why I felt the way that I did. And I felt pretty awful about myself for much of my life until probably the last 5 years, I would say. Prior, maybe a little bit longer than that, because it's been about 8 years since I started my blog. So I was building on that. And more so even in the last couple years, and I'll go into that. So he didn't really understand the mission. I didn't really have much self-worth. I remember telling him that I didn't really feel like I had anything to offer in a conversation. And he would stare at me like a deer in headlights. Of course, he didn't know what to say. What do you say when someone says something like that? But I didn't really feel like I had anything to offer anyone. I felt really, really low. I had no self-esteem, no confidence, and I didn't really even feel like I had anything to offer in a conversation. Like, what would I think about? And developed some major social anxiety over this lack of confidence that I had in myself. And the more I grow now, the more I notice what exists around me, obviously, right? Half of the battle is becoming aware of what we're doing and what the people are doing around us. So I talked about, writing a book for years. I was talking and talking and talking and saying that I was doing it. And I didn't, I made notes. I was writing my blog and stuff, but I didn't really take action on it. And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about taking action now, is because it took me so long to get into that seat. And then once you've done it, it's like you're in this after, and then you want to tell everybody about it because it's so fucking cool. So, I shrunk myself even more. In 2020, about 3 weeks before COVID lockdown, I was divorced. And it was a good time to do some digging. Although I did try to date in and around that. There was a lot of therapy, a lot of blog posts. Growing through the process, I blogged about my DIY projects in my house, dating, sex, recipes the kids and I would try, crafts. And I grew my Facebook audience to about 1,000 followers. And my blog had hit, 30 or 40,000 views at that point, in just like 4 years. And I thought it was cool because I'm just Laura from Sussex County, New Jersey. Like, I'm just writing a blog. I'm just blogging about what I'm going through. But people would tell me all the time and send me messages all the time that they loved that I was honest and authentic. And my mission is to always be authentic. I will say fuck 4 times in the same sentence, and I'm not afraid of it because I'm passionate and it doesn't really matter. So I started in 2016. Actually, the first blog that I posted was on May 5th, 2016. And by 2020, I had about 1,000 followers on Facebook and roughly like 30 to 40,000 views of my blog at the time, from all over, which was really neat. So that was pretty cool. By the time 2021 came around, I found myself in a relationship with someone that I loved very much, but it brought out a whole bunch of anxiety that I didn't even know existed. I thought I had spent all that time by myself. I'm like, I'm healed. And then I started dating and where the fuck did this come from? I thought I figured this out. But it took me a really long time to realize I wasn't in the right relationship, and a really even longer time to walk away from that, and then even longer to let that go. I dove back into myself again, 2022 to 2023, and that was the biggest transformation, the heaviest lift of growth for me as a person. And I truly don't think I would have gotten to this version of me without all that pain. I tried things. I addressed the trauma from my childhood that I, again, talk about in my book, that I didn't even know that I was holding on to. Some of the things sort of were triggered by things that were happening around me. The letting go of the relationship and the unhealthiness of that relationship, and the way he treated me really triggered some things that I had been treated, or the way I had been treated when I was younger. But as far as the childhood trauma, that was really tough to work through. But I promise you, like, now I can see it objectively, and I'm no longer using that. And I don't really have those same thoughts anymore. So it's really interesting. And I'd love to go into that in further detail in another podcast. But it wasn't really until much after that relationship ended that I realized I hadn't blogged at all in the entire time that we were really dating. All of those things that he said he loved about me wound up being the things that he hated about me when we were together, which was really interesting. So I was a very open person, and I did write, and I shared that, but when we were together, I didn't really feel like I could do that. I shrunk myself down, which is something I had done in my marriage as well. So time to break the pattern. So I didn't write a blog for over a year during the time that we were dating. And when the relationship ended, I felt sad and lost, and I really missed my best friend. And I still do, quite frankly, but it had really released me into becoming this best version of me that I've ever known. And it feels fucking amazing. In the last year, it felt like I was coming out of the closet, that I could just be myself again. Because again, when someone is constantly criticizing you for the things that make you you, you tend to shrink yourself down. So once that was over, it was like a release. So in the last year, I've successfully launched my own coaching practice, helping men and women love themselves a little bit more and get organized. I grew my Facebook audience to over 6,000 followers, which is fucking cool, because I never had the interaction or the feedback like I do now. And I feel like I'm resonated with so many more people, and I love making a difference. I've published 2 journals in the last year. They both can be purchased on Amazon. I started this podcast, and I'm now about to hit 100,000 views on my YouTube channel. Like, what the fuck? This is crazy. And I'm working on draft 3 of my book, and I really, really want that to be done soon, but I'm trying not to rush the process, because I want it to be this beautiful piece of artwork that you read and enjoy and really dig into. And I'm working, on some other things like this community. And I'm really excited about that, because to be able to have a community of support really means something. I didn't have that. I talked about this in the previous podcast, but I had this desire to do better. I just started reading the books and watching the podcasts and listening to anything I could to help fill my cup and figure out how to start. And it wasn't until later on that I could, that I found coaches to work with, and, went to therapy and addressed all of those things. But I didn't have a friend group around me, like Sex and the City, where everybody's like working on something, together, or doing it, in a community. So having a community like this is going to be fucking amazing. I'm so excited. And there are so many people on the wait list already. So I'm really excited for that to start. So that's just a few things. And all the while being a single mom with 3 kids and a house and a life to take care of. If I can do it, you can do it too. And I'm here for you. Being an entrepreneur can get lonely sometimes. Wanting change in your life can get lonely sometimes, and it will. Wanting a better perspective or trying new things can get lonely sometimes. And often you'll feel like no one understands. Why the fuck would you do that? Why? And sometimes you're going to stand alone. You will stand alone at times. And that's okay, because that's when the real work happens. And it wasn't until recently that I, again, am going through like another layer of growth that I think it's the way I'm holding myself and the relationships that I have around me. And finally, it all makes sense. And I'm not fighting it or chasing anyone for anything anymore, because my people will rise up. And I'm meeting more business owners, and that feels good because other entrepreneurs know the loneliness. And like I said, my friend Katie, hey Katie, she also owns a business, and she said to me, we were having like a walking meeting a couple weeks ago, and she's like, "Where are the rest of us? Because I would like to find them." And she's so right. It's hard. And it's not just business owners, but it's business owners that are also wanting to strive to do better. There are plenty of toxic business owners that exist as well that, like to talk about themselves and their achievements and don't really care what anyone else has to say. And you encounter them all the time. Not everyone is trying to improve themselves, just like in your personal life. So take that for what it may be. But I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for your support, because that means a lot to me. Some of the closest people in my life don't watch the podcast. Never have, and probably never will. And that's okay. It doesn't really matter. I'm doing what I love, and I feel fucking great doing it. If you know someone that would love this just as much as you do, please share it with a friend. That is the biggest form of support that you could ever give me. And while you're here watching it on YouTube or Spotify, subscribe so you get notified every time a new video comes out. Check out the blog at myinnerstruggle.com and follow me on Facebook to join that growing community, and join the Self-Love Club community by clicking on the link below. Please. It's going to be such a great fucking time. I hope you know that I am here for you, even if you're feeling lonely. And you will at times, but I am here for you. And thank you so much for your support, and I will see you soon.